All right, I'm gonna call to order the meeting of the Hayden City Planning and Zoning Commission. First thing we should do is flag salute, yes? Please repeat after me. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get to business, do we have any conflicts of interest? Any of, oh, sorry, gotta do it then, I think, I'm on track. Go ahead, Jen, please.
All right, Commissioner Sean Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Mary Howard. Here. Vice Chair Alan Davis.
I'm present.
Commissioner Brandon Venus.
Here.
Commissioner Corey Anderson.
Present.
Commissioner Ben Prickett. And Chairman Brian Peterson.
Okay, now I know who's here. So, the people that are here, are there any conflicts of interest with tonight's agenda items? Okay. Let's see, for the consent calendar, there's the approval of the regular meeting minutes from December 7th, is that true? Very good. And approval of the regular meeting minutes from June 21st. And approval of written recommendation in case PZE 21-0109 Hayden Meadows Estates subdivision. Is there any need to discuss any of these items or make a motion?
I move to approve all the items on the consent calendar.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the 3 items.
Second.
There's a second. Is this an all in favor? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right, so I guess we're gonna move into the meat of tonight, which is a public hearing, PZE 21-0094. I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm gonna ask everyone to silence their cell phone, please. And we're gonna have, John is going to present. And before we start, has anybody had any ex parte communication with the applicant or general public regarding this case? Okay. In addition to that, since we have the public here tonight, I want to formally acknowledge and thank you all for being invested in our community, in the development. This case is as in all cases, that we have a landowner being given the right to request to operate or develop their land in accordance with our ordinances and law. Mary made a great point last meeting regarding landowner's rights, and I thought it a powerful reminder of what we deny when we don't support an applicant's lawful request. Obviously, we don't want to support things that are unlawful or ridiculous, but you know, when we debate these things and we're being asked to deny things, we're being asked to deny a landowner their rights. In this case, we're dealing with an already approved planned unit development, and tonight we're going to see how it's going to be laid out. Donna, please, thank you.
Good evening. Tonight we're here to hear the request for Hayden Canyon First Edition. It's the Hayden Canyon PUD Phase 1E, and it's PZE 21-0094. So just wanted to kind of give some background as to how we got to here. So the existing approvals, the property was annexed at 610 acres, and it's the area that you see in yellow and hashed. That's what we generally call Hayden Canyon. The annexation began in 2005 and it was completed in 2009. And the final PUD, as PUDs go, there's a preliminary PUD process and then a final PUD process. And that was completed in 2014. And then that, along with the annexation and the subdivision, they were amended in 2019. Along with that, a master open space agreement was recorded that identified the 40% of open space that was required of the planned unit development. And it identified kind of where those would be laid out throughout the planned unit development. And that was recorded in 2014. And then subdivision phase 1A preliminary plat was also approved in 2014. So just so we can kind of see how these phases were laid out, the phases were just a numbering sequence, not an order in which they were to be developed. It's important to note that. And so phase 1A that was, has preliminary plat approval is here. And phase 1E is south of Lancaster, the only piece south of Lancaster. That's what's here tonight to be for the preliminary plat. One more quick thing, as long as we've got the map up, is that the lift station, which is kind of the low spot with sewer, was destined to be in phase 1A. Oh, I lost my mouse. In phase 1A, pretty much there. And they did some master planning with the sewer system within Hayden Canyon and were able to eliminate part of the lift stations, but they moved this lift station from this location to this location. So just as a, so there's a, and then the question arises, why is the open space not in the same general location as phase 1E? And again, it's part of a phasing plan for a greater project. And so the master open space identified the 40% of open space that was required of the PUD. And 1E's open space is kind of allocated over here in this general area. Hence why you have this side and this side. They're not contiguous, but they're part of the greater picture.
Hey Donna, you look at these maps all the time, so can we point out that on this, north is actually
That way. To your
the left of the screen?
Yeah, it's just that it doesn't really fit well turning it the other way. Apologize. So the development team are the owners, Stafford Holdings LLC. The developer is Stafford Development LLC. The applicant and engineer of record is Starhog Engineering. The lift station engineer of record is Steve Cordes from Welch Comer and Associates. And then transportation plan that you guys got to read, that was that lengthy document, was done by TO Engineers. I think they're here as well. So then the summary of the request is that it's 2 lots. Residential development is south of Lancaster to include open space tracts and private alleys, and that's 37 plus or minus acres. And the open space, per the master open space preservation agreement, north of Lancaster is 12 plus or minus acres. They're proposing residential lots in conformance with the planned unit development. There were several different varieties of residential lots that were approved in that final PUD. They're providing for a variety of 4 of them. 33 large neighborhood house lots, 37 neighborhood house lots, 32 cottage lots, and 60 townhome lots. So with that, and there's just another aerial imagery of it, and I'm gonna turn it over to Gordon. Somebody over there is gonna present. Yeah, just the arrows of the return.
Okay. Thank you, good evening. My name's Gordon Root. I'm one of the principals at Stafford, and appreciate the opportunity to finally inch closer toward the fruition of a long project that's been in the makings for many, many years. I just want to point out a couple things, because I know there's some people that may be listening that aren't as familiar with the material as you, but the entirety of the site of Hayden Canyon is within the city limits of Hayden. It's already been annexed. This is not an annexation request. It is an approved PUD project, and the application before you absolutely complies with the PUD as it was originally anticipated. It falls in line 100% of what we've been looking at. There are multiple governing documents that are already in place. There's an annexation agreement, there's a master development agreement, there's a PUD approval, and there's a master open space preservation agreement. These all took years and hours and hours and hours of planning, not only commissions, the city council, the staff, and hopefully that now we're moving toward fruition to really realize what it can be. But all these documents are very detailed in what can happen, what has to happen, what can happen, and where we go. So it's a wonderful roadmap on how to get from here to where we're going. 1E PUD approved 162 lots, and we are not proposing anything different. We have reconfigured them a bit to add additional open space within the property on the south of Lancaster. And it takes really a side-by-side comparison, but we wanted to respect the surrounding neighbors. And there is a 30-foot buffer all the way around the proposed plat. As well, you'll notice, do you guys have a copy of the plat? Yeah. You'll notice all the way around the edges, I'll have, we put the large lots all around the exterior perimeter of it in addition to the buffer. So you've got a 30-foot buffer plus then a 20-foot setback from the rear property lines to the neighbors. So in essence, you have 50 feet between the property line and the home itself. So we've tried to be very conscientious about that, about the turning radius, the snow removal, the stockpiling, etc. So Hayden Canyon overall has been approved with a maximum density without any bonuses of 2.5 dwelling units a gross acre. I know there's a lot of conversation sometimes about density and what we do with it and how. And presently between 1A, which is approved, and 1E, which is proposed, we're at 2.3 dwelling units a gross acre. So it's approved with a variety of lot types, and the 4 PUD lot types that we're applying for in 1E are really designed to come into the market with a variety of product type, which is attainable by people on different parts of the spectrum. Townhome lots, we made them larger by a reconfiguration than was originally approved. They're 760 foot larger and 50 foot deeper. And this allows us to put deeper driveways. And when we have an alley, our alleys are 19 foot of pavement and then 25 feet to the garages on each side. So you have 69 feet from garage door to garage door inside of an alley. So it really functions as a social activity place, and we get all the service trucks up and down, the garbage trucks, the recycling, fire trucks, etc. We call them Stafford alleys, but I don't know, I guess it comes from me being claustrophobic and wanting a little bit of space here and there. But that's one of the reasons we put deeper townhome lots, because they are alley loaded. Cottage houses, we made them a little bit deeper and a little bit wider. So they're 220 feet bigger than what was previously proposed. Our neighborhood houses are 6,600 square foot lots, and our large neighborhood lots are 7,700 square feet. So we're really trying to be responsive to the needs of the community, what they want, what we hear, and also offer the variety of housing types and choices to people as we come on the market, because this is the first of many different phases. The open space, I think, is real key. It's the open space preservation agreement. It requires 40% open space within all of Hayden Canyon, and that's why when we're donating open space, you saw on the map, was in your materials, and Donna pointed out that it's further to the north, but it's all part of the grand picture and the big picture. So far in our progress for open space, 14 acres of Hayden Canyon PUD granted that acreage for the school and a community center, which is the Hayden Charter School at this point in time. So we're actually leapfrogging ahead and having some of the community amenities and the open space come in ahead of the residential component of it. There's 19-acre park, which will be granted to the city for a park with the first recordation of the plat. Right now, we don't know if that's gonna be 1A first or 1E, but either gets that 19 acres of park dedicated with it. And a little bit of the curveball, I guess, that we all got thrown was that the pump station, has been relocated from 1A to 1E, so 1E's gotta hurry up so we can make 1A happen. Over 12.5 new acres of Hayden Canyon PUD will be preserved with phase 1A. That's 1E rather. That's the additional open space on the north side of Lancaster. We have 8.5 acres on site within, see this map, all the green totals 8.5 acres within that. And so overall, we've got a little better than half acre than the original PUD had anticipated as open space. The sanitary lift station, we talked about that, been moved to 1E from phase 1A. The lift station design has been submitted for approval to the city and IDEQ, and we've ordered the components of it. So we're moving right along as fast as we can. We've had staff input, of course, otherwise we wouldn't have gone ahead and spent the money on what the components are, but we expect to be installing the lift station early fall. We've agreed to be participants in a city-initiated LID for the H6 basin. While we can serve 200 and possibly more units there right now in Hayden Canyon with the existing capacity, there's a path forward that if the LID moves forward, or should say when the LID moves forward, and we're part of the funding mechanism for that as one of participating property owners, that we'll be able to go above that 200 while it's under construction. And the city has fully engaged JUB and is well on their way toward acquiring right-of-way and other things necessary for that H6 expansion. And that is the number one on the expansion project on the CIP list, is the H6 basin. So we hope.
Gordon, for those citizens that don't work in the city, could you just briefly explain what LID is?
It's a local improvement district, and that is where it's a public finance mechanism where the benefiting properties, and this H6 basin goes up Ramsey Road, down to West Dakota, hooks into a Harbs line there and goes over to the treatment station. Then it comes over Lancaster, and it's gonna open a whole bunch of employment lands. We're not the only benefactor by far. I think there's 9 or 10 property owners that have already signed on to say, yes, I'll participate, but it becomes an obligation against the property, and it's repaid through permit fees, and that retires the debt. So it's a mechanism to get the needed capital improvement in place prior to, you know, all the residential units, prior to the demand. So it's a great financing mechanism, and we're willingly participating in that.
Thank you.
The water service is going to be provided by Avondale. There's an existing line in Government Way that we have to, we're going to bring up Government Way about 700 feet into the corner of Phase 1E, and that will service our project from there, as well as 1A can also be served existing. In order to serve, and jump ahead a little bit, the other portions of Hayden Canyon that have some altitude or some elevation in them, we're working with, once again, a Welsh Comer and Avondale in designing a new water tower and redundant pump systems to service the water long-term in subsequent phases. But this extension of the line, I think it's important that real estate development, you know, it's often criticized by, oh, you know, what does real estate development do for ourselves? Well, we do help in many ways, and extending this water line up is going to enable others to hook into the water, as well as when we put in the sewer. We've been working with the city and the staff to create another sewer line extension, which is basically a dry pipe that runs along the full frontage of 1E on Government Way, so that at some point when the properties to the south, which are operating now on septics in the county, come into the city, they'll be able to already have that sewer line there without having to tear up the new improvement in Government Way. So the water's going to be provided to us and then also be available for others to hook up into. The dry utilities, Avista is going to be doing that, and they've provided service provider letters, of course. The streets and the access ways. This is another thing. We have, of course, our traffic engineer who's done all the traffic study. And the impact analysis is completed, and we've worked with staff, and Melissa did some math and came back and said, all right, you know, here's what your impact's gonna be on certain areas, but what we really want you to do right now is focus on Government Way, because that's where the immediate need is gonna be created coming out of Phase 1E. Is Government Way, we're going to do, it's not a full street improvement because the west side is not gonna have the sidewalk and the planter strip, but we're going from the bike lane, travel lane, turn lane, bike lane, swale, which is, you know, the planter strip, then an 8-foot wide sidewalk, which is also more path. Isn't it 8 foot more? And then the setback of 30 feet into the project. So it's going to create a very nice traffic improvement and be able to help handle the left turns in and out of 1E, as well as the existing businesses that are there and coming up to the intersection for queuing. And we're also, while we've got the place torn up for a while, we're putting conduits in and pedestals for a future signalization of Government Way and Lancaster. Like I said, the streets and access ways, this talks about internal part of our redesign. They're enhanced PUD sections. I talked about the alleyways being larger, but we also improved the radii on the corners internally. It was a little tight before. Now, you gotta make sure the fire trucks and garbage trucks and the snow removal could move around. So we've improved that. Better bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We tie into existing trail systems, extend some existing trail systems, add the bike lanes on Government Way. So I think that the community residents, once they come up and see the improvement, are going to be impacted. Like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of development here that has occurred, but the community good is all comes along hand in hand. All streets, like I said, are sidewalks. We're also going to provide mid-block walkways, so for better, get out and walk, as well as a crossing over into phase 1A with a signalized actuated control. So one thing I did want to mention, because I've heard in the past a little bit, Hayden Canyon is, we're not connected with Hayden Canyon mini storage. So we didn't do that, but they're, Hayden Canyon, I just think this is a wonderful project, and it is going to be the first of, I think it's going to be a really vibrant project which delivers a variety of housing choices, and the types and styles we have are going to be able to attract all income strata.
Super. Is we work left to right tonight? Questions for Anthony?
No, I don't think.
Do you have any, I know it's tough to guess with prices on the board right now, do you have any idea of price ranges on what will be available within the space of the homes?
It's always the $1 million question, because someone's going to come back and say, but you said. And they say, well, what's the price of lumber going to be? But we're providing the townhomes,
Yeah.
which are a move up and a move down product, right? People want to either have that as their starter home, which there's very few townhomes in Hayden. And it's kind of interesting when we're looking at it, doing market studies, it's hard to call it a townhome because there's not many that exist, and those that exist aren't for sale. So we think that's going to be a very good entry point, whatever that may be. We're thinking it's going to be mid-3, maybe less. I'm hedging my bet on purpose. And then we're going to have cottage homes, which will be a lock and leave. They'll be things that have 2 bedroom, 2 bath on the main, for people that don't want to have a whole bunch of yard work and just want a place to be, snowbird or whatever they are. And then the other 2 housing types, which are more traditional front load. And so, on those big lots on the corners, who knows? It depends on who wants to buy it and when, and how big of a home they want to build. But I think the real question focuses on what's the starting price point. We hope to have, low 3s.
Are you going to have specific developers that you're working with as far as builders to be in that area, or are you going to be selling the properties individually to people? Like, it sounds like you just suggested people can buy them and build whatever they want.
Yes is the answer.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Another question, you were just talking about, I'm looking at the map right now. I'm assuming that the townhomes are going to be the ones in the center, which are the 2,200 square foot lots.
Yep, light green.
And where would the cottage ones be?
They're the yellow that flank the townhomes.
We're in black and white, sorry.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The townhomes, yes, are the small lots in the middle.
Got it.
And then they're flanked by the mid-sized lots in the yellow. And we try to build the density from inside out, because that mitigates the impact on direct neighbors, because they're more, the housing style or type is what is adjoining to them. But it also provides a vibrant energy on the interior portion of it. The playgrounds, the kids, the walking, the bikes, this is, that's 37.5 acres. It's pretty big.
Corey, anything to add?
I guess maybe I missed something. Why did the lift station get moved? What was the reasoning for that? It was the infrastructure?
Topography, it's just, as we continue to refine all the engineering, is the low point and where it is, and the city rightly recommended that we do what we can do to redo this, overall master plan for sanitary to eliminate pump stations. And so we put the engineers to work and they did the hard problem and came up with, yeah, if we move it over here, we think we can serve the majority of it.
And that's for the whole development?
Right.
Okay.
And it's gonna serve other properties in addition to ours.
Sure.
I think we're gonna drain 60 some odd % of the flow into it. And it's gonna, there's other areas that, aren't in the city yet that will probably benefit from point in time when they come into the city, some of the employment lands, and, some of the other adjoining neighborhoods possibly.
Very good.
Can I ask a question? The townhouses, so you have the alleyways, so 9, 17, and 23 here, those are all backloaded,
Mhm.
so the garages are in the back. So where do the townhouses load? Do they load in there too? Do the townhouses in 7, 8, 15, 16, and 22?
So you're talking about the blocks 7, 8, okay?
Yeah, I'm talking about the alley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
So do they have garages also and they load from that alley as well?
Yes,
Okay.
all the townhomes are alley loaded. The alley, out particularly probably black and white's a little more difficult to see. It's back there.
Now, do you see that alley just north of block 7 and 8?
Yeah,
The one
So-
that says private lane.
yeah, so that's what I'm asking. So the patio homes and the townhouses have their garages off the
Yes.
same alley? Okay.
And it's very much referred to as TND or traditional neighborhood development. It creates a huge amount of on-street parking because there's no driveways that come out into the street, as well as it creates the front porch to activate the internal community.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gordon.
Hence the proposed plat. So, as you've heard before, this is the plat. There was a question that arose as far as access points, and all of the lots internal to the subdivision will access only off of the internal roads within the subdivision. So they won't have any access onto each lot from either Lancaster or Government Way. And the streets that are going through are proposing connectivity to the east, here and here. And this one, if you look here, this is the property line of the property that is directly adjacent to them, both east and west. So the roadway kind of lines up accordingly, just as a matter of interest.
So Donna, does that, so am I understanding that that does line up to an existing road?
No, to an existing property lines, yeah.
Okay, so,
There isn't existing roadways developed to the east at all at this point. So we're gonna kind of go through the subdivision standards of approval. As always, 1 and 2 related to infrastructure is pretty much covered throughout the analysis.
Could you go back to that real quick? I just wanna piggyback off of what Mary was saying. But if I am understanding this correctly, those roads that are going to the east are going into land that is undeveloped, but that land that's undeveloped is next to another piece of land to the east of that we've recently approved for.
It's a ways away.
That's-
So-
It's over there further, Brandon.
Okay. So like on this.
So I'm kind of down
Is this
here.
not this right here?
This
that
is-
we got developed?
This is Mark's annexation
Yeah,
property
so
that's
there.
all the way over here around the ridge.
Right, so what I'm getting at is that property that's in between Mark's and
Mhm.
this one is going to be surrounded.
It is,
eventually.
this is currently city property here,
Mhm.
but it's undeveloped, it's an undeveloped piece of property with a house on it, and there are 6 residential lots that are inside this county,
Mhm.
completely surrounded by city, that's correct.
Okay.
Alright, so as with the standards of approval, I'm not gonna read each one of them, but
Thank
the
you.
infrastructure is pretty much covered throughout the analysis. The staff review was broken into kind of 2 parts this time. We took most of the boilerplate that's pretty standard of all staff reviews and put that in an appendix, and put stuff that was consistent with just this proposal at the front end, so you got both of those this time, and hoping that helps clear things up in the future. So, provisions from the water and the fire providers. We received a will serve letter from Avondale Irrigation District on March 25th. And the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District provided comments related to circulation and how the internal roadways were gonna work, what have you, on February 18th. And then they did a follow-up updated letter based on the agency notice on May 4th that talked about what happens during construction. Sewer. So the city provided a will serve letter on March 25th. Gravity sewer mains are internal to the project, shall be connected to the lift station in the southwest corner of the project. Gravity shall be extended internally to the boundaries of the subdivision and externally in accordance to the sewer master plan. Talked a little bit, you've heard a little bit about the short range and the long range sewer plans. The short-term solution is through the lift station on the southwest corner of the project, and it will serve both Phase 1A and Phase 1E and part of the rest of Hayden Canyon. That will flow north up Government Way and then west across Lancaster through a culvert or through a pipe that was put in the road in anticipation of this project when they did the US Highway 95 work. And they'll put that through there and connect to a manhole on the west side of Lancaster. And currently that flows south through Reed Road to the H2 lift station, but the H2 lift station and the Reed Road has sewer capacity. And so we need a long-term solution, so that when the short-term solution is used up, we have a way to continue to move forward. So the long-term solution is to build the H6 lift station, the associated gravity trunk lines and the pressure lines to the treatment plant from that lift station. The city has initiated a local improvement district, which this developer has agreed to participate, as they said earlier, and the H6 lift station is currently in design. So, the purple on this map shows what the H6 sewer basin actually covers as far as entities that could connect and flow sewer into the H6 sewer basin. This being just a small piece, as they said earlier, of the entire basin.
Donna, can you give me some, so that dotted line up there, that's Lancaster?
This is Lancaster.
Thank you, I needed some reference.
That's
So
right. So
that one is the one that we're talking about, the lift station we're talking about?
the lift station that they moved from this location to this location is the
Okay.
Hayden Canyon lift station,
Okay.
Lancaster lift station. And they'll provide the pressure line to get it up and over, is what they're doing now. And then, as was talked about before, the pressure line that gets this Emerald Estates lift station will eventually go in at some point down the road, not today or tomorrow, but some point in the future. And as part of the master plan, we recognize that it also has a pressure sewer line that will go across at this point as well. And so that will be put in this stretch of road at the same time that they lay their pressure line. And that way we don't have to rip the road up again later, saves on the integrity of the road and costs, et cetera.
But the LID lift station that she was talking about is, show her where that one is. It's
Down
right
here.
there, and it's a big lift station because it'll take sewer from that whole purple area eventually.
Show me that again.
It's down at Dakota.
It's this one right here.
Okay,
And so it has a pressure line associated to it that goes this way, and it has gravity trunk mains that kind of follow Ramsey's corridor, I believe, plus or minus. So that's when we say that that LID is paying for that lift station construction, the pressure line to get it to the treatment plant, as well as the associated, a portion of the associated gravity lines as well. The trunk line, basically, just to put it in perspective. So that sewer pressure stub that we talked about, it'll be placed just like a deferred stub is placed with other developers that are, you know, going down the road and they're putting in normally a smaller stub or a shorter stub, but a stub for future development to connect to. And when the future development connects to it, then they reimburse the city for the cost of the stub. So. Stormwater and snow storage shall be reviewed at the time of construction plan review in accordance with Title 8, and all the stormwater needs to remain on the site. That's according to code. But Hayden Canyon's master development agreement has a stormwater drainage agreement that anytime you have joint stormwater, you have this drainage agreement that you create, and they have with the city that identifies the operation and maintenance and who's gonna take care of it and how that's gonna happen. That was in Exhibit G of their master development agreement in template form. So the transportation study that you guys had the opportunity to review in the staff review identified where extraordinary impacts would be required. And Melissa provided a memo that identified 2 intersections which would be mostly impacted: Government Way in Lancaster and Government Way in Wyoming. So as Gordon alluded to, we have kind of all of the street typicals that were approved in the master development agreement as part of the final PUD, and this is kind of a show of what it would look like. So if you were looking north, and on the right-hand side is Hayden Canyon, and on the left-hand side is New Leaf Nursery, as an example. You would see a 30-foot landscape buffer. You'd see an area that was between the buffer and the sidewalk, and that's actually an 8-foot sidewalk, and in this proposed, what was approved was a 5-foot, so they're actually making it 3 feet wider to have it connect with the pathway to the north. So all connect together. Then there's a swale, a bike lane that's on the street. There's 2 12-foot regular lanes, and then there's that 14 two-way left turn lane that gets into those approaches into their project site. And then there's the 5-foot bike lane. And we believe that that will fit on the current roadway up to the power poles that are on Government Way today, what exists today in right-of-way. So the sidewalk and the swale area, that's not gonna, the curb, the swale and the sidewalk are not gonna be constructed at this point as part of this project.
Because that's the New Leaf side.
Correct. So they provided a geotechnical report that identified the types of soils and field areas which exist today on the site. So if you've lived here a really long time, like some of us have, you remember when that area was utilized for a kind of a fill area. People would bring their topsoil and other stuff and dump in that location to get it to its level state that it exists today. But there are areas, because that was just filled in without any kind of structural fill, that does not make housing building envelopes work well. So they'll be remediating that site out there in preparation of the subdivision and in preparation of the building sites as well. So as part of their construction plan submittal, they'll provide a new geotech report that verifies that they've remediated it so that it's been all placed correctly. Areas that are proposed to be swale areas, they'll provide documentation that'll show that it will drain correctly. And oftentimes what happens during subdivision construction, because we live on prairie gravels, they'll ask for an alternative road section. And so if that isn't the case, then the geotech report will address that as well.
So Donna, we were receiving Okay.
You know what it is?
Yeah, do you want her to show it to you? Yeah, click on the little cog shape.
Thank you.
Oh, all right, sorry about that. We're back.
Are they still there?
Yes.
Okay. So, as,
We're here, we're here, we just lost the, probably the last 5 to 10 minutes of what you were saying.
Okay, just keep going, Donna.
just keep
This is all recorded, right?
So the internal street shall be constructed per the master development agreement, and the street frontage landscaping shall be installed at the time of building permits for the lots that face those streets. Landscaping associated with green space tracts, joint stormwater swales, or PUD buffers shall be constructed and required as part of the subdivision phase, and that irrigation shall be the responsibility of the property owners. Structural maintenance shall also be structural maintenance shall also be the responsibility of any property owners association. Green space tracts shall be deeded to the POA. Before we used to have it so that the green space tracts would just show up on the face of the plat. It says dedicated to the whoever. For whatever reason, over recent years.
Have some audio, please.
I don't know.
It says the audio's off.
Off on the computer, but it's on the phone.
We can hear you, can you not hear us? On this phone device?
So here, let's see up here. I mean, it shows us that we're here.
Audio plays not into it.
I did 861. I'm not sure what that one, it says City of Hayden 861.
It shouldn't matter, we're not muted.
What did it say on the one that has the video? Just by chance.
What does it say here?
861, I think I'm 861.
It's just not hearing.
Shannon, why don't you hang up the phone and do it one more
We're gonna
time?
hang up, we'll be right back, we're gonna try
Just
one
to
more
see
time.
if we can,
Maybe turn down the TV.
But if we can't hear you, okay.
why does it say audio is off? Why would it do that?
Mhm.
What happens if you click on that little speaker as an X?
This?
Is it doing it? No?
It was, people said it was on and then it kicked off, so.
There we go.
Can you hear us?
Way up top, it's muted.
Right there. There you go.
You're unmuted.
Are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I just heard that, but I'm still not hearing anything from the presentation.
Okay, they're not talking, but we just wanted to make sure we were connected.
Huh, I wonder why.
Thank
it did
you.
that.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right, success. Sorry about that.
Thank you. That's okay, I understand with the technology.
So green space tracts at the county used to just put on the plat that you were dedicating the green space tract, and it would automatically convert that ownership from the owner that it was on to whoever it was dedicated to, city, property owners association, etc. So somewhere over the course of the last few years, that has changed. So now all those tracts have to be deeded under separate document to the property owners association. Just wanted to explain that. We were lost for a while. All right. Oops. So just talking about that street type for local access, in the master development agreement, this kind of gives you a feel for what that looks like on those local streets, that we have talked about internally. So the pedestrian crossing is at Genesis, where it crosses from sub-phase 1E to sub-phase 1A. It crosses Lancaster Road. It is with advanced warning, and it must be completed with the phase 1E construction. And then bus stops shall be coordinated with the local school district at the time of construction plan submittal. Just wanted to kind of give you a look-see as to what this looked like. When we were working on the staff review and coordinating between phase 1 and phase 1A and phase 1E, there are subdivision construction items throughout the PUD that are identified within certain geographic areas that occur. And things that have to happen at the timing of platting of those. So this is a requirement to occur when phase 1E and phase 1A get constructed.
Donna?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No, go.
So, help me understand, so that's gonna be a road that crosses Lancaster. How is that gonna be controlled? Just stop signs on the north and south?
Mm-hmm.
How are we gonna make that safe for pedestrian crossing?
It's because it's got advanced warning, so it'll have the lights, you know. It's a light, you know, you poke the pedestrian crossing and the lights go.
So is it on the sidewalk or on the crosswalk?
Yeah.
Will twinkle?
Yeah, you know how
Yeah.
they go like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I just saw that as a real dangerous place to cross.
This is just another example, trying to turn it around north and south, Government Way, to show this is the phase 1E and the phase 1E open space again. This is that Institute for Community. This is where the school is at. This is the City of Hayden kind of park area. So again, just part of that open space and how that works. So the parks and adopted parks master plan, this is all kind of part of the park design, multimodal connectivity between the pedestrians, getting them from the phase 1E through the PUD up to the park area. Geohazard stabilization measures shall be addressed at the construction plan review, and all utilities shall be installed underground within the development in accordance with Title 12. So the property is yellow, and as was identified in the staff review, this is zoned residential R1, single family residential, but it is a planned unit development. So single family residential provides for classic Hayden neighborhood where single family homes are on smaller lots. It can have accessory dwelling units if you can meet those requirements, although there really aren't accessory dwelling units identified in the PUD. One of the things that we've kind of done over time when we come here, and we've heard from the folks that have come in to talk to us here at the city, is how is this, how does it compare, and how does it affect? So just as kind of taking this as an overview and looking at it from the general area around it, Emerald Estates, which is in the county, has 196 dwelling units, and it's 2.54 dwelling units per acre. And Hayden North, PUD, which is across the street, not quite fully developed, but it was approved for 286 dwelling units, and it's 4.375 dwelling units per acre. The Marks property, which is east of this property and not yet developed, has preliminary plat approval, had 70 dwelling units per acre, which worked out to about 1.3 dwelling units per acre. Pineview Estates, which is also south, that's Emerald and Pineview that are kind of dovetailed up against each other just south of this project. It has 170 dwelling units in it, and it works out to 2.22 dwelling units per acre. Stone Creek North, which is farther to the east and south of the Marks, also just preliminary platted, 72 dwelling units with 2.5. And the whole PUD at 2.5 dwelling units per acre for Hayden Canyon was approved at 1525. That's without any density bonuses. Did a comprehensive plan analysis that was provided in your staff review. It fits under a plethora of goals and policies and then actions that have been brought forward. So all on-site and off-site improvements shall be required of the developer. Extension of infrastructure per the adopted city code standards and plans. The mitigation of improvements is required. The developer shall participate in a solution to construct the H6 sewer basin infrastructure as identified. We sent noticing to 23 agencies, and of those 23 agencies, we heard back from 5 of them. Avondale Irrigation District had no additional comments. Idaho Fish and Game had some really interesting comments related to conditions or suggestions to put in the CCNRs, and those were mostly directed to wildlife in order to avoid future conflicts with wildlife, as well as fencing concerns. And the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, I thought their comments about clearing and burning of slash piles kind of came after the fact, but they came. And then they had requirements related to future construction requirements. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District, we talked about their comments related to this subdivision. And the Coeur d'Alene Airport's original comments, they requested an navigation easement. I said, okay, come on, seriously? So we were able to find the navigation easement and send them a copy, so they were good. On Friday, I sent you guys, or Shannon did actually, a memo regarding the public comments that we had received from folks. And there were like 6 comments. They were all opposed. Most of them came from the properties to the south that are butting up against this on the south side. For the most part, there were concerns that were related to traffic, congestion, traffic and police force needs and property values and taxes, impacts to the owners to the south because they haven't seen anything other than forest to the north, so this is kind of an impact. One person had questions regarding who the water provider was, impact fees and roads. And then were there any changes in the PUD approvals, and there are none requested in this application. So the staff recommended conditions of approval begin on page 18 of the staff review. I'm gonna kind of hit them in summary. We're not gonna go into those hugely in depth. General conditions of approval are dedications and easements on the plat, joint stormwater requirements, easements, maintenance, etc. Any permits from outside agencies need to be obtained, and approvals run with the land. As said, no lot shall have access, direct access onto North Government Way or to East Lancaster Road, and there aren't gonna be any approaches within that 30-foot PUD boundary buffer setback area. And then the final location of all addresses or approaches shall be approved by the city. In the construction plan requirements, the internal streets need to meet the Hayden Canyon PUD Type 4 local street section. North Government Way East, the east half has to meet that Hayden Canyon PUD Type 11A and Type C2 city typical section. The developer shall be required to construct the turn lanes as required by the warrant for the approaches to the subdivision, and that west bike lane shall be constructed based on condition number 6. I always hesitate to use the word turnaround, because really what that means is that for those roads that are going east, should the fire department require a turnaround or the city require a turnaround, some way to get their vehicles maneuvered around, then that shall be required. In the case that we have here, those are too short to have a turnaround per se. They just have to meet that requirement. Erosion control measures shall be met. City of Hayden sewer shall be designed and constructed in accordance with city standards and codes. The pressure sewer main from Pineview and Emerald Estate shall be placed as a deferred stub along with 12-inch pressure main from the lift station to the manhole in West Lancaster. Concurrence as to the locations of the mailboxes shall be required at construction plan submittal. Sometimes the post office wants them someplace, the city really doesn't want them, so there's a little push back and forth to make that happen. A note shall be included in the landscape plans to identify the grass mix to be applied to those individual lots before they develop, so it's not blowing dust everywhere. And that installation of irrigation is a required component of landscaping. Stormwater drainage agreement per Exhibit G of the Master Development Agreement shall be entered into regarding the operation and maintenance of the stormwater areas, and no fences shall be allowed in joint stormwater areas.
Do you know how many of those there'll be?
They're really kind of figured out more at the end of, during construction plan review.
Okay.
PUD buffers, green space tracts, and joint stormwater areas shall be constructed as conditions of the subdivision. Street tree placement, individual swales shall be constructed at the time of building permit. That's that street frontage landscaping. Street lighting shall be included within the construction plan submittal and shall be consistent throughout the PUD, but it was recognized that the PUD has a variety of kinds of uses. You got park areas, you got schools, you got some commercial component. So it can be changed based on the type of use and or the availability of lighting. ADA requirements shall be met on all pedestrian crossings. Number 6 talks about that transportation impact mitigation and the June 18th memo provided by Melissa. And it's the developer shall construct the necessary widening on North Government Way to have a functioning two-way left turn lane, a bike lane on the west side, and possibly place that southeast and southwest signal pole foundations and or conduit. Recognizing that the cost of construction costs are not really nailed down, the final scope shall be determined at the time of construction plan review, with the top 2 being the highest priority to get completed. Site mitigation. Mass grading plans, if necessary, shall be required as part of the construction plan submittals to identify grading impacts on subsequent and abutting phases and or abutting properties. And then that updated geotech report that we talked about for the structural fill areas. And then the phase 1A offsite improvement. So that lift station that was part of phase 1A that's now shifted to phase 1E is still a requirement of both in order to get to a final plat and approval of infrastructure. So the lift station, the pressure line to where it connects in West Lancaster, and the gravity line up through phase 1E and into phase 1A are requirements of phase 1A to be able to get it to complete. Which is why Gordon says we're not too sure which one's gonna go first, if it's gonna be phase 1A that'll plot first, or if it's gonna be phase 1E that plots first. But there are, so we're kind of treating this lift station as an off-site improvement for phase 1A, but a part of the requirement for phase 1E. So it's all required, it has to get built. The developer shall be required to fund sewer system maintenance on all mains greater than 8 inches until adequate flushing velocities have been achieved. And then again, there's a list under 11, I think there's 5 or 6 items under there that identify conditions in the master development agreement that are related to the first plat of the subdivision. So whether that's phase 1A that plats first, they have to meet those conditions, or if it's phase 1E, they have to get those conditions met in order to get everything done in the correct order and meet the conditions within the final PUD. So the Planning and Zoning Commission can recommend approval with conditions, or deny the request for preliminary plat of the subdivision. I stand for questions.
Corey, anything?
Sorry, I'll come back to it. I did, but give me a second.
Right, I got 2. So back to, you mentioned the turnaround thing, similar to what we just dealt with a couple of weeks ago in the Hayden Meadows area.
Yeah.
Because that's just such a short area, they don't need to have that turnaround.
Correct.
And then the other thing you just mentioned, and Gordon did as well, we're not sure if one A is gonna happen first or one E is gonna happen first. It just is kind of like, we're gonna throw the dice and figure out which one works best.
We're putting the lift station in, starting, you know,
So it seems like one E would make more sense. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
They're both in, 1A is in construction plan review for the subdivision as we speak. Phase 1E is gonna come in as soon as they work through this process, they'll bring their construction plans in. So as long as the lift station plans have been approved and everybody gets the inverts at the, where they all connect to be the same, whatever that number is, so that works, then they could begin construction. But that's
So
kind
then
of
if one E happens first, then that new open area, quarter mile, half mile up the road, north of the Hayden Canyon charter area, becomes an open space at the same time as one E? Okay.
Yep.
I'm understanding.
and the city park, an additional 19 acres.
Correct.
Jeff, anything? Staff or knows it all? Donna, you said on the road improvements that they're recommended but not required.
I said that on the mitigation, the city wants to have a functioning two-way left turn lane and a bike lane on the west side of the street. That is what we wanna see happen. We also would like to see the southeast and southwest signal pole foundations be put in and the conduit, but ultimately, if costs exceed the mitigation that they're trying to mitigate with those extraordinary impacts, then we'll have to figure out if there's another funding source to get to this, or if we can't get those done with this portion of the project.
So that's based on the existing mitigation fees are paying,
Correct.
related to the cost of what's going to
Right.
build those, okay?
Correct.
So my question went right along with that, so then, thank you for answering that portion of it. Does that mean that the city or what other entity would be responsible for that would need to kick in again while everything was still open so that we didn't have to dig up government again?
Well, that's kind of the point here of trying to have their extraordinary mitigation roughly be the cost of the foundations and the conduit, the signal foundations, cause those are a big hole that those go in, so
Right.
hoping that we can be kind of smart about it.
I appreciate that the city staff is looking forward, knowing that growth does come, we don't control that, but that we're trying to mitigate those costs along the way so that we don't get hit with these huge bills later and, oh whoops, we can't do it now.
Right.
So thank you. So my question then also, because phase 1A and 1E are kind of up in the air, what's the actual timeline that we're looking at? You're wanting to start the pump station early fall, does that mean we're looking at a 22 build? What are we looking at?
We're looking to go as soon as the plans are approved at the city. And that 1A, I believe, is looking to go real quick, so then it's just kind of a race of which site development contractor goes a little faster. They're both gonna happen concurrently, you're gonna look at them, they're both gonna be going.
All right. Corey, do you have anything to add?
Actually, it kind of answered my question for that, so.
Good, Sam. Don, I think we're good.
Which slide would you like me to leave up during public comment?
Full one. The conditions of approval normally, but there are 11 and there have A's, B's, and C's and D's and all that, so I don't know if we're getting the utility out of a single slide personally.
Big yellow map.
Does anybody on the commission have a preference?
Probably the map would be good for people, so they see it.
That one? Or,
Yeah, the plat mount, I think,
Big yellow.
that
Yeah.
he wants the big yellow, he wants the big yellow map.
That one?
Sure.
That's fine.
Yeah, the only thing that's funny about this one, and of the one that shows the different plats, is it looks really smushed in, but it's 36 acres, so it's not
Right.
as crazy as it looks to me. At least when I was going through the packet, it looked like, 1 acre, a little postage stamp thing. This is a big piece of land. Okay, so, at this point, anyone who wants to offer comments
Can I ask
regarding?
one question, Donovan? Go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't even, so, I know, you wanted to go sit down again. So the development on that corner, do you know how big that is?
This development?
Off to the right, going to the east? Up.
This one.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one?
That's it.
I looks
That's
similar in
this one.
size.
Yes.
I'm just curious for like space-wise, for people to see what that maybe is.
60.
I don't,
Well,
it
Box
was
is
just-
area, that's
I don't
all.
have this one, I don't have this.
So, and then comparing it down here, that's all I was asking, if there was some sort of reference to kind of, so everybody can see that.
What's the name of that subdivision, you know? Did you have it in your local comparison?
I didn't have it in my comparison. It's in the county,
Just like Ferndale goes up in there.
Ferndale or something, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize, I put you on the spot.